Welcome back, everybody. So today, I want to talk about Black History Month. Well, people call it Black History Month. I like to call it Aboriginal American History Month. And that's because the people that are being called Black on the most scale are Aboriginal American descendants. Okay? And there are some other groups of people that have our bloodlines in them too. And I think it's important that we don't just think everybody needs to look a certain way or was a certain way, because that's not the truth or factual. But the Aboriginals were definitely dark-skinned and who was being called Negro today. Those type of people. But let's kick it like this.
Osio Taishu, Shadanalai. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, the originator and host of the American Indians Troops. I'm here today with an old friend and brother, Minister Louis Farrakhan from the Nation of Islam. I'm honored to sit with you again.
Thank you. It's my honor to sit with you and to be a part of your radio show.
You know what, brother? If you were to walk into any mosque in America and you just laid your hands on the first person or the third person or the fifth person that you see, you realize that you're laying your hands on a Native American?
I believe
there were only 8% of the slaves that came to America. So how is it that there are so many more people that they claim are Black or African American? I think they got the numbers wrong, because a lot of Native Americans are the ones that they're counting as Black folks too.
Like Mr. Nightwolf was just saying, if you were to go to the Voyages website on Emory University, you could see that the numbers for mainland of North America, 366,000 over 400 years. There's no way we'd be at the millions of people that we are now from those numbers. And even when they start looking at these numbers, you could tell even then that they're not given accurate numbers, because places like Brazil, that was where they found Negro de Terra. All right. Well, you don't know. Let's talk about that.
The Portuguese particularly begin using the term negro or black for a wide variety of people other than people from Africa. They apply the term very commonly to the native people of India and to other areas of Southeast Asia. But when they arrive in Brazil, they also use the term for the native people of Brazil. They call the Indians of Brazil negros da terra, which means natives of the land. And then later, when they begin bringing people over from Africa, they call them negros da Guiné, Black people from Guinea. This term Negro is just used very commonly, interchangeably with Indio. This term Negro is just used very commonly, interchangeably with Indio.
Luzia is a perfect example of Negro de Terra, found in Brazil. Was considered the oldest skeletal remains in the Americas. And this is who the anthropologists say were the first Americans.
The term was also used in a very similar way by English-speaking people. And not only in Britain, but also in the United States area, you find instances where people who are clearly of Native American ancestry are categorized as Negro or Black. The term Black is used in English interchangeably with Negro very often. A blackamoor in England.
As early as the 1600s in Virginia and again in the 1700s in the Carolinas, they started changing people's categories from Indian to Negro, especially when they were captured by other Indians and traded as slaves. That is where majority of the slaves came from. The other majority would be for the Caribbean islands, and that's them coming from other parts of the Americas. But that's when they started labeling them Negroes. And when they did that, you know, that detached you from being indigenous, that detached you from the land and the rights and all of those things if you weren't labeled as a Indian. Then they started playing with, if you don't have full-blooded Indian, or if you got too much Negro. But somehow, even if you mixed white 3 times over, you're still Indian. That's in the census. Just, you could check that for yourself.
Who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the God of the universe. Now, many of the native people that you see today don't look like the native people that the Phoenicians found here 50,000 years ago. They were much darker complected. But any time the enemy conquers us as males of a tribe or a nation or a people, the prize, the booty is our women. So they come among us, they mix their blood among us, and as we get lighter, we come under their sway. So just as it was in the Dominican Republic and under the French in Haiti, so it is in the Americas with our native family. When the Phoenicians came, you say 50,000 years ago, a white man wasn't on the planet then. So it was easy for us to intermingle with one another because we are blood of each other's blood and bone of each other's bone.
So this goes back to my original statement, which is there were always different complexions, always different looks. It's ridiculous for when people say Negroes don't look like Indians and Indians don't look like Negroes, because the only thing they made either is their dark complexions.
With this classification system, you have this classification system is still working in the interest of the European. Or what? Is that true or what?
Well, it's working in several ways, I think. It works to obscure the relationships between African Americans and other groups. For example, the Mexican American population has a lot of African ancestry. By and large, they don't know that, or the African American population doesn't know that. So it's very difficult to build a bridge of understanding, you see. And what we are lacking in many cases is the realization that even though there are differences, even though we each have our cultures, which we want to protect and keep alive, we have our community traditions, we have different languages in some cases, but nonetheless we have also bonds of kinship. And we shouldn't forget those bonds of kinship.
Now, Dr. Francis Welsing, psychiatrist, has said that the white population on the earth is a minority population. And one of the ways that a minority population becomes a majority population, conceptually, theoretically, and practically, is to divide the majority group into little groups, so that by doing that, the minority group, in this case European, becomes the majority group. How do you see that? And does that apply here in what you're talking about?
It does apply here, although it's also very, very common in Latin America, where the Spanish elites who control a good many of the Latin American countries use mixed bloods against the Indian masses. And they try to convince the mixed bloods that they're actually white or near white, and that they're better than those who are darker. So they still use the caste system, you see, so that they can maintain themselves in power. And once in a while, they share a little bit with some person who rises from that group. In the United States, the most beautiful example of that technique is the coining of the term Hispanic these days. Hispanic means Spaniard. And that term has been coined by the federal government to co-opt Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans into believing that they are more related to a white type cultural heritage, because there's no question about what Hispanic is, Spaniard. And even within the federal government's definitions, white Spaniards are allowed to qualify for affirmative action and for other kinds of things under this term, Hispanic. So it has many purposes, but one of them is to, as you were suggesting, you see, bring this group closer to the white population, so that even as in California, where Hispanics may become a majority by the year 2010, they may not be an effective majority, because many of them will be being co-opted into thinking that they're white.
This is why I don't have any problem with any race or any group of people, because we're all intertwined somewhat in this country. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's about everybody knowing their real heritage and people living their natural lives and their natural selves.
First, the greatest accomplishment of all is to unify our people and our struggle under one theme that rises above all personal and organizational agendas. And that theme is justice. Justice is a principle of fair dealing. It's the greatest of those principles. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that justice is the law that distinguishes between right and wrong. It's clear that black people in America have not received justice, fair treatment, equal treatment under the law. It's clear that the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this hemisphere, have not been treated fairly or justly. It is clear again that our Latino family has not been treated fairly, justly. Again, it's clear that women who don't get equal pay for equal work have not been treated fairly. It's clear again that the soldiers, not fair treatment. So when you look at all those who have a gripe and no real avenue for the redress of their grievances, what greater thing than for all of us to unite and form a great brotherhood seeking justice. When you expose the root of a tree to the light, then that tree dies. The tree of white supremacy, its roots have to be exposed that that tree may die, that we may live regardless of race, creed, or color, in peace and brotherhood with each other.
So happy Aboriginal American Month, y'all. Let's keep learning.